No? Yes, it's very French. That song was by a band called Paris Combo, named after my favorite city in the world, the City of Lights. It's true. I love Paris in the springtime. I love Paris in the fall. I love Paris in the summer when it sizzles. I love Paris in the winter when it drizzles. As long as I can remember, I've been enchanted with all things French. It led to my decision to take French as a high school student, and I had so much fun in class. I thought, I never want to leave, and I want to study the language of exquisite cuisine and high fashion, and my favorite beverage, not in high school, but now, le champagne. So I went to school, got my degree, and I got to spend lots of years in a French classroom teaching French. And since then, I've still been enamored by all things French. If you've been to a restaurant and perhaps ordered something à la carte, maybe you've had apple pie à la mode or the soup du jour. Maybe you've been to a reception where you've had hors d'oeuvres served. Then you've had just a taste of French in American culture. Maybe you've listened to something on the news where a government has experienced a coup. Perhaps you've seen a style that's très chic. Or maybe you have shrugged your shoulders at some point and said, c'est la vie. Or experienced, as many of us have, that feeling of déjà vu. Then you know French is everywhere. It's very common in modern day American culture. It's also very common in business. In fact, French is the third most important language to know in business today. Can you guess what the other two are? Not Spanish. Surprise! Not Japanese. Surprise! English, Mandarin. What? I guess you got some classes to take. Yes, okay. Yeah. In fact, Business Insider magazine recently had an article that listed all the reasons why it's still important to know French in business. And while probably not a lot of French adult professionals will go take a class or hire a tutor, for example, to learn another language, it behooves all of us to understand the roots of culture and languages around the world and how they're impacting what we're doing here and now. But today isn't really just about French. I mean, it kind of is. But it's not all about French, it's about learning. And you've heard me say before, if you've been to business theater, when we learn, everybody wins. That's right. In fact, lifelong learning in studies has been connected to things like mental acuity, long life, better health, and deeper and more satisfying relationships. And as if that weren't enough for learning, the world that we live in and the world we do business in is getting smaller and smaller. We don't have to wonder anymore what people in faraway places are buying or what they're watching or what they're reading. We can find that out easily. And chances are it's very similar to what we are buying and reading and watching because the world's getting smaller. And with news coming at us 24 hours a day, we really don't have any excuses to be ignorant of things in the world. In fact, knowing about the whole world around us is crucial to professional success. So think about your circle, your professional circle. Maybe for you it's not French. Maybe there are people maybe that you need to learn some Mandarin. Maybe it's Spanish. Maybe it's Swedish. We don't know. But think about those people who are in your circle and how you could benefit from knowing something about other languages and cultures. But for today, it is in fact French. So you could do worse, so take some notes. I'm going to have, I realize I don't have my little hand thing. Is anybody going to forward this for me? Not yet. Oh, no, not yet. Can we go back? Okay. All right. Okay, great. Right, so today we're going to learn some expressions because at the very least, it's important, well, thank you. It's important for you to recognize some French expressions in business because then you won't give a blank stare to someone, maybe the CEO of a company or an important client when they use an expression. And better yet, if you were able to pronounce properly and use properly a few great phrases, you will appear to be sophisticated and savvy. The same thing is just not true of other languages. We do borrow words from other languages, in fact. Spanish has given us some words. We have poncho. We have fiesta, plaza, coyote, that may come up, in a business setting. Unless we forget the musical sounding language of German. We have Kindergarten, Zeitgeist, and the ever popular Gesundheit. But French, French. With well-placed words in some networking setting or a social setting, you can appear to have an air of international flair, a certain je ne sais quoi, if you will, right? And at the very least, you can do damage control and not walk into an embarrassing faux pas and make a fool of yourself. So here's a list. Oops. Here's a list, a partial list. This doesn't have any cooking or dancing vocabulary, because if you are a chef or a dancer, there are a lot of French expressions. But these are some expressions that we will see and hear on a fairly regular basis. See if you know how to pronounce or use any of them or all of them. We don't have a lot of time, so let's get going. Just kidding. There's no way we could get through all these. So what I've done is compiled a list of kind of the top 10, the most useful ones that I think you can have, as well as the ones that I hear mispronounced and misused the most frequently. Now, this doesn't include words that people will use in my presence, and they're, say, salty, a little bit off color, and then they have to apologize by saying, well, pardon my French. And I'm always happy to tell those people those words actually are not French. And since there seems to be a little bit of confusion around that, I thought what I could do is let you know what French words are okay to use, and you don't have to apologize for them. So our top 10 list is this. Because I know the Business Theater Live audience is quite savvy, these are probably not new to you. But because we're about winning and learning, we'll go through them to see if you can go a little bit deeper in your knowledge. We'll start with my personal pet peeve, and I'll just get that out of the way, RSVP. You've probably seen this on invitations. RSVP are just the first letters in the sentence, répondez s'il vous plaît. Répondez s'il vous plaît just means respond, please. It's really quite a simple request. If you're the one who's making the invitation, you don't need to say, please RSVP, or RSVP, please, because you're really saying, respond, please, please. It's redundant, and you don't need it. Sometimes you'll see RSVP regrets only. That's the only time that you don't have to let them know if you are coming. You only have to call if you're not coming. Now, Evite has done all kinds of weird things with this, and you can put maybe in there. Well, if I can get babysitting, or if something better doesn't come along. But really, RSVP, since the mid-19th century, just means, for crying out loud, let me know if you're coming or not. It's not that complicated, all right? Number 2, the sommelier. That's how you pronounce it, sommelier. Does the sommelier have to do with wine, shoes, or furniture? Wine. I told you this crowd was savvy. Of course, wine. A sommelier is someone at usually a high-end restaurant that's in charge of procuring the best wines and then helping the customers pair those wines with items on the menu. It comes from, in case you're curious, and I know you are, it comes from Old French, Middle-Aged French, and it's the word for the person who was in charge of all the supplies for the royal castle, and he usually drove a pack animal. So it's a really niche word, and, well, now it's just the person who's in charge of supplying the wine. So if you're out to a dinner with clients or colleagues, it's very appropriate to ask the server, could you send the sommelier over? And you could suggest a bottle of wine for the table, or say, I'm thinking about this, what wine would you choose to go with that? And then, when he's going to get the wine, you can tell everyone at the table where the history of the word is, and they'll already be impressed before you even drink a drop. That's free. No extra charge for that. So, the wine comes, your food comes, and now is a perfect time to use number 3, bon appétit. Bon appétit just means good appetite. May you enjoy your meal, everyone. And it's great because it's a nice little French phrase everyone can say. They've all read the magazine, probably. And it's a nice etiquette signal to say, it's okay to eat now. So you can kill several birds with one French stone. You're welcome. Number 4, toucher. Toucher is the past participle of the verb toucher. And it means touched. It comes from fencing, actually, if you didn't know. It's what a fencer says when his opponent has touched him with the blade, and that tells the person keeping score that he has scored a point. Touché, I've been touched. And so it comes from fencing, but now in modern vernacular, we use it to say, oh, you've made a good point. If there's some sort of a debate or you've told a good joke, it doesn't mean right back at ya, as I have read and heard some people say. It doesn't mean what you said, right, same thing, it's not that. It just means you've made a good point. It's kind of the equivalent of, okay, you got me, that's a good one. And you have to concede a point because that's what the fencer is doing. Touché. Gauche. Gauche is a hard one for me because it means left, and I'm left-handed. And it seems like nothing in this world has a positive connotation if it's on the left. Any lefties here? God love us all. We're going to take over the world. But gauche has a negative connotation. Something that's gauche, it's an adjective, it means it's simply not done. It's just not appropriate. And usually has kind of a white trash, vulgar, crude sense to it. So you don't want to do something and have somebody call it gauche, because it's just not very sophisticated. An example of something that's gauche is number 6, a double entendre. In professional settings, double entendre is one of the few things I don't tell people to try to pronounce the French way, because if you talked about someone who had done a double entendre, they would have no idea what you're talking about. So just stick with the Americanism, double entendre, and it literally means to hear double. So it's one of those phrases that someone says one thing, but underneath they kind of mean something else, and that something else usually can be followed by, that's what she said, and it has a sexual connotation. So it's considered gauche in professional settings because it's not really appropriate. A double entendre, because you're hearing two things. Voila, one of my favorites. Very, very useful. If you are a magician, this one is not a problem for you at all, because you pull the rabbit out of the hat and voila. Here's the thing. You have to pronounce the V, because the word is not voila. It's not a thing. Voila doesn't mean anything in French. My husband doesn't speak French, and he'll say, blah, 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 what did I say? And I'll say, nothing. That's gibberish in any language. But voila is a very useful phrase. It literally means there it is. So you can use it to make a point with a flourish. You also can use it to skip tedious steps in a story. For example, I pulled out a few ingredients from the refrigerator, and voila, boeuf bourguignon. I don't know how it happened. We met at a bar, and voila, we just had our 20th anniversary. See how efficient that is. Just get to the end. Voila. And if you ever saw My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and the father was always saying, here's the etymology of this word in Greek, and there you go. This is what French dads say. Et voilà. Eh bien, voilà. There you go. Concierge. Have you been to a hotel or live in an apartment where there's a concierge? The most important thing to know is you always pronounce the G. It's always a concierge, never a concierge. And it's a really cool person in a hotel. I worked at the front desk of a hotel and wore a polyester suit and thought the concierge was the best because she got to wear her own clothes. People never complained. But a concierge in a hotel or an apartment building is someone who just arranges things. They can make reservations for you. They can help you pick up your dry cleaning, because this is how apartment complexes work in France. There's somebody who lives in that bottom floor that everybody passes, and they take care of all those things for the residents. Concierge. Rapport, you heard this one in our skit. The word is rapport, coming from the French. Now I sound like that guy in the movie. Rapporter. Rapporter means to bring back. So rapport means relationship in the sense that whatever vibe, energy I'm putting out there, you're giving it back. We have an easy, harmonious rapport. But you don't say report, because that's what you're filing when you have to do paperwork. And it's spelled this way, and it's pronounced rapport. And you're not going to say rapport, but you can say rapport instead of report. Sometimes people don't know the difference. You guys do, but sometimes other people don't. People who are a little bit more gauche, And finally, a tête-à-tête. Head to head is all that this means. So if you're having a meeting and you think something would be more efficiently discussed in a more intimate setting, then you suggest that you have a tête-à-tête. It means head to head because in intimate conversation, people speak in hushed tones and they put their heads together. It's very visual, isn't it? So it's not a double entendre. It's not gauche or inappropriate to suggest a tête-à-tête. All right, time for a pop quiz. Yay! I'll give you a scenario. You tell me what French word or phrase is appropriate. You receive an invitation. Are you coming or not? Merci beaucoup. Full points. Number 2, pull someone aside for a private talk. Tête-à-tête. It's just fun to say, isn't it? Tête-à-tête. Someone makes comments that, can be inappropriate sometimes. You know what? I'm going to give points for gauche. I am a very open-minded teacher, and I will give points for that. Double entendre is what I was going for. But this isn't guess what the teacher's thinking. It works. That's appropriate. And number 4, all the food's been served. What do you say? Bon appétit. And you give somebody a hard time, and then they give it right back to you and say, this one's on you. Touché. You have to put your hands up. Touché. Right? Okay. I like to end with just a little bit of a story. Years ago, my husband owned a catering company, and there was a young man who worked for him named Jeremy. This is a don't be that guy story with French. And they were waiting for all of the guests to finish their meal before they could clean the table or whatever. And so Jeremy leans over to my husband, Tony, and another employee and says, with an air of confidence, because he was in his 20s, and he leans over and he says, check out the motif on that guy. And Tony and the other employee are like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. You see, because a motif is a repeated pattern in literature or art, and he was trying to figure out, how does that fit with this guy? And he thought, the only thing I could think is that Jeremy mixed up the words motif and coiffe, because a coiffe is a hairstyle. Motif, coiffe, both French, they kind of sound alike, but they don't mean the same thing, right? So if you're going to use words, French or otherwise, know how to say them and also know what they mean. Don't be that guy, because it doesn't make you look savvy and sophisticated to throw around a word that doesn't mean what you think it means. So think of Jeremy. Here's my challenge. Choose one of these words or phrases that maybe you didn't know before, or one that you know a little bit better now, because we learned and we won, and use it this week in your conversations as often as possible. Probably not with the same person as often as possible, or they'll get sick of it, but as often as possible throughout the week, because that's how you get tools, that's how you build your communication skills, and it's how you become really French. No. Because you just never know. You might find yourself at a soirée some night, trying to build a rapport with one of the guests who has a certain je ne sais quoi, and voila, your life has changed. C'est la vie. Thank you.